Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Muslims and Mental Health. I am happy to be joined today by Brother Abdul Kareem Salauddin. Brother Abdul Kareem is a former U.S. Navy and U.S. Vietnam veteran, and he is going to join me today to discuss substance use and abuse disorder and a program that was created within the Muslim community to specifically address the needs of Muslims. Welcome, Brother Abdul Kareem. I'm so happy to have you here, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to get started by just talking a little bit about your background and how this all came to be. And if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit with our audience about your time as a veteran in the Vietnam War.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalam Nabi Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Good morning, Sister Heather. Thank you for inviting me to share my experiences with substance abuse and the role that several brothers in Philadelphia had played in our community and beyond. Alhamdulillah, without giving a long biography, we'll just start from when I went into the military. I joined the U.S. Navy in September of 1972 at the height of the Vietnam War. So, alhamdulillah, we went to these people and we said, we want to create our own recovery program. And they advised us, okay, this is what you need to do. This is what the Quran says. This is what the Sunnah says. And for at least 2 years in the very beginning, it was just 3 brothers. It was just the 3 of us. And it had enriched my life so much. It made me clear about what my duties and my responsibilities are to Allah. Mm-hmm. It gave me answers to why certain things had happened in my life and what brought me to a certain point. We went back to the very basics of Islam. We studied for years the pillars of Islam, the 5 pillars, the 6 articles of faith. We knew that a lot of people wanted to be Muslim and in fact were Muslim, had Shahada, had families and all this, but still used drugs because they didn't understand what the basics in Islam were. They didn't understand the responsibility of praying 5 times a day. They didn't understand the responsibility of fasting. They didn't understand the importance of the Shahada, what that actually meant. They didn't understand the principles. How could they practice? If they didn't understand what our relationship to Allah's books are, what our relationship to Allah's prophets are, if they didn't understand that I survived because I went out in the street, dangerous neighborhoods, and I was able to go there and get drugs and come, but they didn't understand Allah was protecting you and the angels was with you. But the things that we believe, they was Muslim, but they didn't believe in the unseen. Mm-hmm. They was Muslim, but they didn't believe or understand the qadr of Allah. And what's more, they didn't understand that there's going to be a reckoning and a resurrection. So how could you practice this religion when the very basic tenets of it you don't understand? Mm-hmm. And this is what we founded Kaffarah on. If Muslims understood really what this religion should mean to them, that they would do better. Mm-hmm. And, subhanAllah, we was able to do that. We, with the help of the people of knowledge in Philadelphia, we established those 8 points I don't know if you want to go through that point by point, but I sent you a copy of it. And we kept these documents to pass this on to future groups. Like I said, today I have worked, this is why I appreciate doing this with you, because this is part of what I wanted to do as being the last remaining person from the original three brothers. I feel like my job is to pass this on. There's several brothers who are still alive in Philadelphia. Of course, a lot of the men died, from illnesses or just, mashallah, just, it was there, Allah called them. And one of the brothers that used to work with us, he passed away. Let me think for a second. We lost a brother that used to work with us. They buried him last week. I mean, we at that age anyway. It's the fourth quarter of life, right? So a lot of our guys have died. But before that, there were many, many, many people who worked with us who were members of our group, and they started another group in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. They're still basically working together. What they did, they went from being an Al Kafar satellite to buying a huge building that they turned into a masjid. So they have a masjid that it went from it morphed from being Al Kafar group to a masjid, and that's in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. The message was carried. One day, my wife and I went up to Newark, New Jersey. There's a halal meat market up there, huge butcher, and they have a lot of good products. So it was a nice little outing. So we went up there to buy meats, and we went in the market. I get in the market, and I'm over there looking where they have newspapers and announcements, and I see an announcement for Al Kafar. My head almost exploded. This is years after we did our work. We created our group, and it disbanded for whatever reason. But here I see this, and it gave a number. So I called the number. It was a sister that answered the phone. So we give each other salams. And she even had the story, because that was part of the advertisement. Three brothers got together, yada, 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 and started this group. So I introduced myself. I said, in the story that you have on your flyer, it says that three brothers got together to start this particular group that for Muslims that dealt with addiction. And I said, I'm one of the brothers. And she was like, mashallah. So we started talking. She called me later with her husband. They were both in prison. And they got our literature. Because we used to always, I didn't even get into the function of Al Kafar, what we did. I'm just giving you a little overview. But one of the things that we did, at its height in Philadelphia, we had about 300 something members who were active, who would come to our meeting. We would meet 3 times a week at different mosques throughout the city. We only met in mosques. And we became so popular, and that all the masajids in the city supported us. And when they found out people in that mass, because nobody knew how to deal with addiction, the imams, none of them. It was something that the Muslims didn't talk about.
Right.
And so once we were established, they started sending people to us from as far away as New York. I remember Imam Siraj Wahaj, nationally known, nationally popular imam. He used to come and he came to support us always, but he also would send people from his mosque. His members used to send them to Philadelphia, pack their bags and send them here. And we take them in, and, because we had certain networks set up, there were, it's a lot of stuff that we were able to do. And I pray to Allah that we can get people interested in it again. What's happening now in Philly is that one of the young, very ambitious and very good scholarly brothers here, Sheikh Tahir, they are engaged in talks right now to at least support it to the point where it becomes functional again, because there's a need for that here now. We addressed the need that was prevalent in the community, and the need is again arising here. And I talked with them briefly. I think we're supposed to meet in the coming days, from what I understand. The brother I was telling you about, Rashid Salahuddin, that's the therapist. He's negotiating with these brothers now, because all we want to do is act as consultants. You have the 8-point program. We have the oral history. Nobody's written down documented the history, but there's enough brothers still alive that were really, really active in it that, you know, if Allah take my soul today or tomorrow, somebody can come right behind me and do what I'm doing now. But I'm the last of the three. So, you know, I think it's important to put this information out there, to preserve this information, and to pass it on so Muslims can put it together, because we don't ever have to be in a situation. First of all, this is something that we have to deal with. This is something that we can't close our eyes to. You know, we have our society, people in our society get caught up, and you, as a psychiatrist, you understand that. But society as a whole, and the Muslim community in particular, don't understand it. They just like, oh, so-and-so has a problem. Let me put him out my house. You know, my husband is into this. Let me divorce him. You know, we have solutions to these problems, solutions that come from the Quran and the Sunnah. We just have to apply them. You have to have the brothers like myself, the sisters, because there was a sisters group that formed as a result of Al-Kafar. I forget what they called themselves, but there was a sisters group, and it started with the wives of the brothers, and then that opened the door for the sisters who were actually having problems to come forward and say, I need help. We first started, and we started having meetings. I remember one of our first meetings when people started really coming, it was maybe 50 or 60 brothers. We were sitting in the masjid. We opened the meeting, we started talking, and we passed out. We always had information, passing out information. That was one of the things I did. And like I said, the brother Jamal Ali, it was his idea. This was his thing that he wanted to do. And we all had input into that, but everything else was basically from him. What I did was I used my IT skills to keep the information flowing, but I was the guy that really just pushed this thing. I'm going to drive this thing. And we all assisted each other. So we were in a meeting, it was about 50 people. And we asked the question, how many guys here are married? Okay. Nobody raised their hands. How many guys here or have lived with somebody, lived with your girlfriend, your significant other? Everybody raised their hand. So we have people here that are Muslim, that the basic stuff, not only do they not know, they're not practicing it. You mean tell me all you guys here have girlfriends and you're not married? So this is where we got to start. We got to start with this. Inside of a week, we had 35, 40 marriages.
MashaAllah.
So it's just basic stuff. And so the people like myself, the original three, we're all married, have been married for quite some time. So just basic stuff. We got to start with that. We got to get people married. How many guys here work? You know what I'm saying? How many guys here own their businesses? So it wasn't just about sobriety. It was about all the things in your life that are part of this.
Mhm.
And of course, and this is when you really see the idea that Islam is not just a religion, it's a way of life, because it touches every aspect of how we live our lives. And so this was the mission, to remind people that if you say this is what you are, this is what you have to do.
Mhm.
If you don't know, we're going to get the information to educate you, and we're going to show you how it's done. And it was a living, breathing movement. It
Mhm.
wasn't something that you just pull out every now and then and put it up on the wall. It was every day. We educated brothers. Listen, we're going to pray in the mosque every day at Fajr and Isha and in between. Different masjids we had close relations with, where they would give us the keys to the mosque. We moved into the masjid, but when it was just the three of us for those 2 or 3 years that we were just putting it together and we're getting uh, commitments of support from the different masajids, you know, we met in our homes, the three of us. But when we reached out, and trust me, I know personally, I used to go to NA meetings and stand outside and pass invitations to the Muslims.
Mhm.
And if I knew you, I'd give you one too. We chased people. It was a couple of brothers. Every time they came out to meeting, I was there. You know, we used to give shahadas right on the spot at NA meetings.
Wow.
So, you know, we went to recruit our own people. We was telling them, come home, come to the mosque. Sisters had taken off hijab just to go to NA meetings. You know, because one of the things that they would tell you in NA meetings was, your sobriety is more important than anything, even your religion. Because if your religion was that important, you would have never left it. So that's crazy, you know. So like I said, NA and AA to me were religions that were vying for the Muslims, to pull the Muslims away from Islam,
Mm.
and produce non-praying Muslims, Muslims who, and I know people that left Islam as a result of going to NA and AA meetings. You know,
Wow.
so we were trying to save our brothers and sisters. We were actually trying to save them. So, you know, we felt that this was our job, you know. And today, because you had these same issues, it's still a job that needs to be done, you know, and we need younger people, and particularly people who are victims. We need them to step up, you
Mhm.
know.
So inshallah, let's look at the 8-point substance abuse recovery program of Kaffarah and go through the points, inshallah. The first one being recognition and Toba.
Recognition and Toba is basically, you know, like in NA, they talk about admitting that you have a problem. And that's basically what the recognition stands for. But it's more important for us to make Tawbah, to ask Allah for his forgiveness. There's no way to any type of recovery or to make, we don't usually use that terminology to make amends for people. But once you start to begin to make Tawbah to Allah, and you understand the seriousness of where you've been and what you've done, then you can start working towards, you know, dealing with your family and your friends in different situations like that. But it's basically the idea and the knowledge that you had gone down the wrong path and now you want to change directions,
Mhm.
you know, to get back on track Islamically and to address all of those issues and to work with the program. If brothers came to us and they didn't want to follow what we were doing, we would ask them, you know, listen, go ahead back until you're ready. You actually have to be ready to make a commitment to doing what we're doing.
Mhm.
You know, we didn't use that same philosophy, like just come in here and stay here kind of thing. There's a lot of work to be done. And there's a lot that you have to do, you know, and we didn't sugarcoat it. I mean, like I said, we asked men, who's married in here? I mean, how you think Allah's gonna bless you to get yourself together and you're not willing to do what's right? You living with a woman that's not your wife, you committing a major sin here, man. You know, you need to get married right away. And we had the imams and the people of knowledge she don't have to be here, call her on the phone and say, listen, we're gonna get married right now. Y'all been living together for the last 6-7 years, go ahead and marry her. You don't have to have an elaborate ceremony, you have to get married. And the brothers who made those commitments to do those things, their lives started to get better. Alhamdulillah, you know?
Alhamdulillah.
So that's what that first point is about. You're going to be serious now to get yourself together. So this is the way you do it. You have to ask Allah for his forgiveness and for his help.
And so essentially, just to summarize, it's the cessation of the activity, stopping the activity, repenting, and having sincerity in that repentance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so it's almost like, you know, it sounds like a sort of mini reckoning of its own, right? There's like the huge reckoning that we have once we pass on, right? But this is kind of a mini reckoning. Like, I'm trying to deal with this now so that maybe, inshallah, Allah, you know, forgives this, you know, in the major reckoning, right? Like, I'm squaring things away now.
Absolutely, because, and see, this is why you have to understand and accept all the basic Islamic principles. You know, if you, Allah says in the Quran, "O ye who believe, fear Allah as is his right, and don't die except as a Muslim." Can you imagine Allah is saying to you, don't let death get you, you know, while you're in the wrong. Don't because once that happens, it's no help for you.
Right.
You know, straighten your life out now before the angel of death comes to you. I mean, that for me, and there's years that, you know, you got one foot on the other side of the track, and you know, and it's just by Allah's mercy that you're still here. But we're tested in many different ways. And I'm gonna tell you a personal story about myself. For all the years that I had been, you know, doing this and doing that outside of the deen, you know, there's consequences for that. And like I said, I was pretty much functional. You know, a lot of people talk about how they hit bottom and I lost this and I lost that. None of that ever happened to me. Wallah, none of that never happened to me. By Allah's mercy, I never lost a thing. I didn't steal from my family. I made a way, but you know, I never went to jail. You know, none of that ever happened to me. I never hit a bottom. Well, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
But years after years and years of sobriety and peace, after all the years working with Kaffarah, and I was diagnosed around the same time I had got clean with hepatitis C. Around I would say, what we say, 86, 87, around the same time I was diagnosed with hepatitis C. And that was from, you know, intravenous drug use. And so, you know, I had to go on a quest now to find out what it is that I need to do to improve my health or better my health. And that was a decision I had to make. So once I was diagnosed, I decided right then and there, whatever I need to do, that's what I'm going to do. because I know and I understand how this happened. I know how this happened.
Mhm.
So I immediately I registered in the hepatology department at the hospital here in Philly. And back then there was no cure. Today there's a cure. Today you can, if they diagnose you, you can go right to the hospital or a hepatology clinic and get a shot just like that and be cured. But it wasn't no cure then.
Mhm.
So I started on different drug programs, the various drugs that they were using at the time to try to fight this disease. And I mean, they were very toxic. Uh, interferon, different versions of interferon. I tried 4 different drugs. They would put you on a treatment program for like a month, 2 months, 3 months at a time, and then they would stop because the stuff was so toxic. It would do things to your body. You know, it would change the color of your skin. It would change the texture of your hair. You know, sometimes people would become erratic, and I mean, it was all kinds of things. And I mean, they had warnings about this could happen, that could happen. And I tried them all, you know, and nothing worked. But the disease didn't actually start to attack. It was just a virus sitting dormant in my system. But somewhere around 2000, 2012, I went and made Umrah in 2012 for that was my 3rd trip to Mecca and Medina, alhamdulillah. Um, when we got to the other side, we took that 15-hour flight. My legs were swollen. What happened? He said the hepatitis is really probably starting to attack your liver now. You need to go to your hepatologist. And so I followed up, and from 2012 to 2000 to following year, I started to get sick. You know, different things started to happen. Limbs were swelling, fatigue, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And you know, hepatologists were very good. They put me on they told me I needed a transplant, is what it was. They said, look, you got to do this or you're not going to survive. And I mean, it was a rapid descent. I had never been sick like that before in my life. So I was placed on the waiting list for a liver transplant at my regular hospital, Thomas Jefferson University Hospital, and at the VA hospital. So I was on 2 waiting lists. And from that point, which is like 2013, 2000, the end of 13, no, the end of 2012, all the way up to August 24th, 2014, I was in and out the hospital. I was so sick. I had to this is when I retired. Because you know, I wanted to knock out 40 years, you know, because I had a sweet job, I was making good money, but all of this stuff came tumbling down. And I remember talking to Sheikh Jackson, your husband, and he said, Abdul Kareem, this is the qadr of Allah, man. This is your test. Okay? This is your test. So pay attention, fear Allah, and be patient. This is what my sheikh told me. Fear Allah and be patient. You're a good dude. You're a good Muslim. You worked hard. You had issues. You had problems. Allah's not going to leave you. Allah's not going to let you suffer. But whatever you got to go through, it's to expiate your sins. This is what my Sheikh Abdul Hakim told me. He said, you know, you're a good Muslim. Allah's not going to leave you by it. Don't fear this. fear Allah.
Mm.
Fear Allah and be patient. And so on the 24th of August, 24th of August, 2014, it was a Sunday morning. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning. I got a call from the transplant coordinator, and she said, Mr. Kareem, we have your liver, okay? And we need you to get down here in about 2 hours. I had a bag already packed because they, they tell you what you need to do. But like I said, I was sick for a long time, the whole waiting period. I was in the hospital, I would say 99% of the time, 95% of the time I was in the hospital. I was very seldom home. I was in the hospital. And in the days leading up to the transplant, they asked me, did I want to stay in the hospital because I was getting closer and closer to death. They only give you a liver transplant when you're close to dying because there's so many people in line. You're in this line of people that's waiting to have their life saved. They give you like a number that's like your place in line. And there's a whole lot that goes along with it. You have to have checkups daily. Not weekly, daily, you have to have checkups. So I was in the hospital quite a bit, and wallah, I suffered. But the Muslims never left me by myself. Always had visitors, phone calls. A sheikh from Yemen was over here studying or doing something, and some friends of mine from the Palestinian community said, our brother is sick. He's sick, his liver is bad. And this sheikh came over my house and performed the ruqya on me. And for those who don't know what a ruqya is, that's when this is from Quran and Sunnah, where you pray over a person from the Quran, from the traditions of the Prophet, and that they pour Zamzam water over your body while praying over you. They performed this in my house. It was about 8 or 9 people here that witnessed it. And here I am. So, and all of this is as a result of how I lived my life from going in the military at 18 years old, thrusted into the war zone, scared to death, and tried some narcotics to make me feel better. This was the end of it. And so, alhamdulillah, it's been 7 years since I had the transplant. And I mean, there's challenges with that. There's no like you get a transplant and everything's cool. I still have health issues, but wallah, I'm okay. I'm good. I get around by myself. I do all the things I need to do. I live a pretty good life. And I take tons of medicine daily, but I have to do that to keep this liver working correctly. I get my monthly checkups, or what's every 6 months now. I had some issues, but the last time I was hospitalized was about 5 years ago. So I'm way ahead of the game, I'm way ahead of the game. I'm friends, very close to the donor, to the donor's family. I know these people well. I've done work with the donor's mother and the Gift of Life program, which is they call the group that coordinates organ transplants in Philadelphia. One of the groups, the biggest group, is called the Gift of Life. They just sent me something the other day that I haven't answered them yet. They want me to participate in a certain type of, they do programs where they urge people to donate organs and this and that. And they've had 4 programs in the Muslim community, because a lot of Muslims, unfortunately, don't understand that in Islam it's permissible to do that. There's a lot of urban legends, this is haram, that's haram, how the Muslims do. And of course, none of this is true. So, like I said, the top scholar here, Sheikh Tahir, Dr. Tahir Wyatt, worked in coordination with the Gift of Life program. And I'm the guy because when I was sick, he used to come visit me all the time. So once they got that together, they say, let's reach out to Sheikh Abdul Kareem and he can come and talk. They had 4 programs. I talked on all 4 of them in the Muslim community, explaining, my circumstances and without going into the drug stuff, but just, the whole process of getting a transplant and, what I'm doing as a result of that.
Mhm.
And but again, the liver going bad and all this is as a result of, you know, my addiction.
I appreciate you sharing that because, I mean, not only does it highlight your journey as an individual, right, but it also highlights the parallel, journey of the system, the systemic reactions to and effects of, an individual being affected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you were talking about my husband, and I remember that time because I remember him having some nights where he didn't sleep as much because he was praying for you.
MashaAllah,
He,
alhamdulillah.
loves you, so
MashaAllah. And I love him.
I
Absolutely.
was like, I remember that time, as his sort of, Sakina here, like
MashaAllah.
it was, I remember that, and it was very meaningful to him. And that was your friendship as brothers, but even more than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole system is affected, even when one individual is affected. And I think that sometimes that gets missed in our community. When people, well, this brother or this sister is struggling with something. No, we are all,
We're all struggling.
we're all struggling with
Absolutely.
it because we're all part of the same community.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate you sharing that because I think it demonstrates both the parallel process between the individual and the system.
Let me tell you this, Sister Heather. They had prepped me for surgery. And I used to talk to your husband at least once or twice a week, particularly when I was in the hospital. I used to talk to him quite a bit. And, like I said, I was very sick. I was very weak. And so they're preparing me for the surgery and they rolled me into the room where the anesthesiologists, the ones that are not in the operating rooms, like a room next door to the operating room. And there was maybe about 35, 40 people that had assembled in this operating room because not only was this a surgery, this was a lesson. And there were 4 surgeons, maybe 3 anesthesiologists. So I'm in this room and I'm geared up, ready to go. And my wife was sitting there with me. And I asked her, the last person I talked to on the phone was your husband.
Mm-hmm.
I called him on the phone and he said, I already called to make arrangements to fly to Philadelphia. I'll be there tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, don't come. Don't come. I said, if Allah chooses to take my soul, then come, because my family will need will need your assistance and your comfort. I said, but wallahi, man, my faith is in Allah, my trust is in Allah, and inshallah, it's gonna be all right, man. But I talked to him, and we made dua, and when I hung up the phone, they rolled me in to the operating room. Now, the chief surgeon, who was his name is Cataldo Doria. He's a world famous uh, uh, transplant surgeon, world famous. He's from Italy, and he was here in Philly for some years. He's gone now. He moved on. And he said to me, he reached over and he said to me, he said, you ready, Mr. Kareem? I said, yeah. He said, well, I need you to pray to your Lord, because I know you're a religious man. I need you to pray to your Lord to guide my hands during the surgery.
Mm-hmm.
SubhanAllah. And, I spoke to my wife. She said, I'll see you on the other side, inshallah. And here I am. Allahu Akbar Kabir. Alhamdulillah Kathir. So, again, all of this was a result of, what I did to myself. And I know that, and I understand that, and I made peace with that, and whatever Allah has given me as a result of that is a benefit. And I'm eternally grateful to him, and I thank him for that every day. And I ask him to forgive me for the years that I was in error, to forgive me for that. And, again, this is what happens. So the lesson to be learned here is, particularly for Muslims, if you find yourself caught in that cycle, that you have to get yourself out of that. And we found that the strongest weapon for that is knowledge and understanding of the deen. If you don't understand Islam, it can't work for you. This is, the miracles work after you understand what your responsibility is and what you're supposed to do. The miracles don't work without the knowledge.
So to that end, and that fits perfectly your example with the second point of Kaffarah, which is attachment, right?
Yeah.
And that believing men and women are friends and protectors of one another.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have, the saying that, it takes a village. Not only applies to dealing with children, but it also applies to our bond and commitment to each other, the brotherhood and sisterhood of Islam. There's no success by yourself. The Prophet ﷺ wasn't sent to mankind, to individuals. He was sent to communities. He wasn't sent to one race of people. He was sent to mankind. And so the strength for us is always in the community. The blessings, the benefit is always in a community. It's never with one person. And no one person is more important than the other. What the Prophet ﷺ taught us is that we stick together, we work together, that the blessing and the benefit and the strength and the power is with the group.
And we meet people where they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so to that end, right, then the third point is around therapy and support.
Therapy and support. We have to, one of the things that I learned about NA and AA was that people are encouraged to come forward and to share. Now, the sharing piece can either be a benefit or a detriment. Now, the way in which NA and AA, or specifically NA, went about it was like a no holds barred. Whatever you want to talk about, you can talk about it. And I think that in therapy, I've learned that there are rules in therapy, just like in Islam, there are rules. The Prophet ﷺ always talked to us about not talking about things, or not talking about your sins to the point where it's like you bragging about them. Okay? And so we ask brothers, if there's specific issues that you need to talk about, we'll get one of the people of knowledge to come and talk to you about that situation. We don't want you to share that in public, because we want to get away from that sharing piece, because it can be very dangerous. For example, I sat in the NA meetings where people started talking about their sex life. Okay, and that has nothing to do with me. I'm sitting in there listening to you. What benefit am I going to get from that? people started to discuss how they changed from or that they were bisexual, or that they were homosexual. One woman actually discussed, and I don't even want to talk about this. One woman discussed very, very deviant sexual practices. Now, we're talking about sobriety. If you need to talk about something like that, you need to talk to someone else. That's like one-on-one therapy. So there were no rules for that. And as Muslims, these were the things that, you know, I had to sit there and analyze what they were doing to come to the conclusion that it wasn't beneficial for me as a Muslim.
Right.
So for us, we needed to talk about your family. You married, you're not married, your job. You need a job, you know, do you need more education? We all do. We need to talk about the things that would help brothers get to the next level. Whatever you did in the past, your sins, this is not a confessional.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you're talking about protective factors, right? So like it's
absolutely
like identifying the protective factors that are going to keep you out of it. Because one of the things about addiction that sometimes people are not aware of is that so you can trade one addiction for another.
Right.
And so if you're
absolutely.
exposing people to a variety of them, you know, because you also have SLAA, right? Sex and love addicts. You know,
there you go.
So so it sounds like some people were trading one for the other, and they're exposing people to, oh, okay, so you can leave this one and go to this one, which is why we see a lot of times at those support meetings, people out on the outside smoking cigarettes, right? Because they're going from one to another to replace that. They're replacing that with something, right?
But not only that, people, like you had a group of Muslims here that they don't go to parties. You know, people can do or don't listen to music, but I mean, just like social gatherings that Muslims don't do, those are things that are encouraged in the NA and AA communities. So they were starting to have parties, and I even went to some of those parties, you know, in the early days, and I was like, hold up, this does not feel right to me. This is going back to stuff I did when I was a teenager and before I was Muslim. And there was a lot of fraternizing between the sexes, and I mean, it was just a lot. And that if your goal is to get clean, this stuff right here is not going to help you as Muslims. So we had to, what we wanted to do for the Muslim brothers was to help create an environment that was conducive for Muslims to grow and flourish in Islam and with the Sunnah. This is what we encourage.
It's like because that's what those people know, right? They don't have the access or knowledge of an Islam, and so that's what they know. That's what they do. But it is almost like taking the Muslim backwards to a place of, you know, of jahiliyyah, right, of ignorance, because you already know about an Islam, where those people don't. You know, like they're doing what they do because that's what they know. People do what they.
But the other thing, and you're absolutely right, but the other thing, and for me at the time, and for the people in Kaffarah, it was like a challenge to our Islamic way of life. And the people were saying this because this got you clean, because they would always claim that you're only clean because you came to NA. Which is a fallacy for me as a Muslim. I'm clean because of Allah's mercy. I'm clean because Allah is cutting me some slack. Allah is making it possible. He's opening up a door for me. And see, people's gratitude, if your gratitude, this is the test. If your gratitude is not to Allah, then who is it to? So you're talking major shirk right here.
Right.
And this is the thing that Allah says that he will never forgive. So you want to put yourself, I mean, Allah will forgive most anything except for shirk. So why would you take a chance with that? And that was one of the major components, one of the major issues that we stress to people, that if you're living in shirk on a daily basis, if you're participating in shirk on a daily basis, then your prayers, your fasting, your good deeds, all of that's for nothing. It's like, dust in the wind.
And
So
that
this is very important.
I mean, this is such a great point, right? Because it creates a dependence on something external that is not Allah, right? It
Absolutely.
creates a dependence on something that it's a fabrication.
Absolutely.
And this is actually your fourth point, right? About Tawheed. So you're bringing people back to
Tawheed, back to the
Tawheed
beginning.
and that reliance or dependence on that, not on these external factors.
This is a major, and the reason why it's there, and I'm quoting from the different people of knowledge that helped us get to this point, your husband being one of them, is that the points that precede that are like stair steps to guide you to that. It guides you to that. And then this is when you come into the pillars. You have to, it's almost like, it is like you have to make wudu. You have to cleanse yourself. You have to make ghusl. You have to cleanse yourself from where you were. So if you get to that step, you get to that point, now, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Rasulullah. This is where you are. This is where you have to be. And this is where your success lies. So yes, that Tawheed,
and then your step 5 is the fundamentals, right? That you were mentioning.
Fundamentals.
So you go from Tawheed,
the 5 pillars, and then the 6 articles of faith, because our whole dua and our whole mission was to get the Muslims to understand the basics. We never dealt with complex issues of fiqh or none of that stuff. We never dealt with any of that. We just wanted to get people to get back in line with the basics of Islam, the pillars, the articles of faith, praying in the masjid. We wanted to get people, because people were indoctrinated into NA and AA. I know people to this day don't miss meetings. Don't miss them. And if that works for you, alhamdulillah. I don't have no issue. And believe me, during the time that Al-Kafar was active, I had all manner of people that wanted to debate with me about X, Y, and Z, and why did y'all, because when I left NA, it was a bunch of people that came with me. All right, so this never happened in the history of NA in Philadelphia. And a lot of, NA's, don't get me wrong, and NA has saved a lot of lives in Philadelphia. AA has saved a lot of lives. A lot of my friends, a lot of people I come up with, a lot of people that I work with, all manner of people have survived and are doing well and have found sobriety. And in their heart and in their mind, they probably found happiness. But for me as a Muslim, it's different. I can't be around people who feel like, let's talk about it this way. The Prophet ﷺ always talked about, be careful who your friends are. He encouraged us to be around people who prayed, be around people who remembered Allah. If you're in a meeting, the hadith goes, if you're in a gathering and Allah's name is not mentioned, it's like being in a cursed gathering. It's like sitting around a dead carcass, So here I am at these meetings sitting around a dead carcass. Allah's name is not mentioned. People mention the name of who they think God is. And to boot, they have a saying, a tradition, or whatever they call it, a cliche, that is a statement of shirk. God, your God, is the God of your choosing, could be anything you want it to be. This is their statement, because they know they had a lot of atheists coming into this thing, people who didn't understand not just God, but didn't understand the Trinitarian version of God, the monotheistic version of God, and all the other little subgroups that fall into that. Catholicism, Mormonism, Christianity, different Protestant groups, whatever. And the Muslim, here's the Muslim that's sitting there who really want to get himself clean, but he might have took Shahada 5 years ago. He might have been in prison. She might have been, took Shahada some years ago and never really understood because they was caught up in the addiction. And they never really understood what Islam means and what Islam calls for you to do in terms of committing yourself to the deen, what's required, study, commitments. None of that was done, but you still feel like I'm a Muslim. You believe, but you don't know what's next. And you don't know what's next to help you get yourself out of, it's like addiction is almost like being stuck in quicksand. You try to move, you get sucked in. We were the ones who extended that rope. And Allah Ta'ala tells us in the Quran, hold on to the rope. So here we were, Al-Kafar, we're extending the rope. We're trying to pull people back. And so there were many, many times people wanted to engage me. I was like a villain, but I was happy to play that role, because you know what? I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. And I'm trying to, to make this kaffarah for the sins that I have committed. I'm trying to make up for that. So this is my kaffarah, to help somebody, help the next person. You want to argue with me about it? I'm not going to argue. I'm going to tell you what we're about, and that's it.
Which is your step 6, right? Which is repair.
Repair.
And helping brother or sister start to repair.
Yeah, and that's where, they follow in that order, because once you come to that idea of repair, so what do you have to repair? You have to repair the important relationships. You have to repair your lack of knowledge with knowledge. You have to fill those gaps with the things that are important. You have to. I've been living with this sister for 10 years. We had 2 children and I never married her. You have to repair that. I quit my job because I hit a bottom and I can't take care of my family, or I've divorced my wife in my addiction, or she divorced me in the addiction because she couldn't stand it no more. And, my retort to that was, I don't take care of my kids. You got to repair those things. And we can go on and on and on about the different maladies that happen as a result of, addiction and people getting caught up in it, and what do you use to repair those things? You use the Quran and the Sunnah. And while that may sound abstract to a lot of people, trust me, it's there. How do you get to it? You have to have people of knowledge to guide you. You have to have people of knowledge that break down those hadith. You have to have people of knowledge that break down what Allah is saying in the Quran. And as you learn more Quran, you have to learn Quran, you have to read Quran. Islam is a living, breathing religion. It's not a religion that you put on top of the cabinet, or that you pull it out only on Friday. No, Islam is 24/7. This is part of what I know and part of what I understand. I know that when I practice Islam, that all the success, Allah has never denied me from the things that I want that are good for me. Because Allah also tells you in the Quran, perhaps you think a thing is good for you and it's not. And perhaps you think a thing is bad for you and it's not.
Mhm.
We're talking about people in general. Sometimes we don't understand his relationship to Allah, God, and the world.
Mhm.
Sometimes, I mean, we've had people die. I mean, just daily. Read just the papers daily. People dying from either addiction or in the process, because the whole thing, get up in the morning, got it on your mind, get out the door. Where am I getting the money from? So if you don't have no money, you gotta get money. That's another trip. On your way to get it, that's another trip. You don't know what's there waiting for you.
Mhm.
Let's say you get it and get back home. You don't know where it is. So all of these things, this is a crazy cycle of madness.
Mhm.
And Muslims, Christians, Jews, unfortunately, mankind can get caught up into that.
Mhm.
And depending on what religious way that you ascribe to, it's going to determine how you deal with things. And wallahi, the average Muslim in America is ignorant of his religion.
Mhm.
The average person. He's ignorant of his religion, you know? And so our mission in Kaffarah was to make these things available, to make these things clear, and to help brothers every day to get through it. The way Kaffarah was set up, it was set up like there was an emir, a leader, there was assistant emir, a second leader, and then we had a treasurer, because we raised money so we could help people who needed money. And there were different little responsibilities from there. Person that helped with information. Information was really key.
Mhm.
We always had different types of flyers. I'm gonna try to send you some of them that I retained. And when you read them, you'll see it. And the flyers were basically Quran and Sunnah,
Mhm.
quotes from the Quran, quotes from the Sunnah. You know, so a lot of people, and I say that as height, it was some 300 something people that participated. There was a sisters group that participated. And we also, in Philadelphia, they have a Majlis Ashura, a group of all the imams from all the masajid that sit together and they discuss, you know, the community and how to do this and how to do that. They asked us to sit on that board, on the Majlis Ashura. And my response to that was, hold up, man, this is a group trying to help people to get their footing. This is not a group of, you know, I didn't want to say these aren't functional people. This is a group brothers are trying to deal with their personal issues. And the response from the leadership was like, these are all our people.
Right.
And because a lot of them come through your group to get themselves together, that's all the more reason for y'all to sit on this board. I mean, the community in Philadelphia really said they really embraced recovery. They embraced whatever you guys think the Muslims need to do. We want that because we're sending people to you that are problems in our mosque. We get ready to kick them out. Their wives are frustrated, their children, and you send them back to us as good, decent men.
Right, which is your part 7, which is reentry, and there is a reciprocity, right? There's a reciprocity there that is needed, and I can see the wisdom behind having you as part of the Majlis, right? Because on the one hand, we have examples, you know, of people that can share with us, like, yeah, you're not missing, right? Anything. They're not doing this. It's all, we all have the pieces we were given to fit together for that purpose.
Yes. And that's important to realize that. And for anybody that's listening that fits that category of, well, I became Muslim when I was, you know, either I was born Muslim or I became Muslim at a young age and I avoided the street. SubhanAllah, that's a ni'mah from Allah. That's your benefit and that's your test.
The street or the club or anything. Like, you know what I mean?
I'm saying the street just in general terms that encompass all of that. If you miss that street, that's a benefit from Allah. But it's also a test, because the other side of that is that, and you probably notice that sometime in your head, you'll ask yourself, what did I miss? And you didn't miss a thing. You're ahead of the game. But at the same time, there are people that fit that same category that if they wasn't able to answer that sufficiently for themselves, they went out there and tried the street to see, is there something out there that I like? When Allah says, perhaps you like a thing, it's not good for you. So that's why I say this is a living, breathing way of life, because we're all going to be tested. We're going to be tested in different ways all throughout this. The test ends when the life ends.
Right.
The test ends when the life ends. You know, so
in that acknowledgement of the group, this goes to your, we've been building. This goes to your 8th piece around building and propagation,
yes,
right? So
let me put it this way. We got through all of those points until the 8th piece. The 8th piece was our whole intent was to create our own clinical environment. And this is what I would say today, we're still there with all the people that have come and gone. And this is specifically was for individuals, but it's basically for the group itself. But Allah has blessed us that there's still remnants of what we started to do in different places. Newark, New Jersey, Williamsport, Pennsylvania, they're still functioning. That's a mosque in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. There's a mosque that brought in Kafar in Newark, New Jersey. Unfortunately, Philadelphia, I don't want to say it evaporated. People moved on. Brothers got better jobs. Brothers went away to study. Brothers moved, their families, people moved out. People moved on, you know, my job, I got really, my job, I don't want to say it took off, but I had advanced in my job. And then different personal situations came up for people. I know myself, I had to fight a discrimination suit on my job.
wow.
You know, it was an 8-year struggle. And but importantly, I have always been of the opinion, and it's basically because of my studies and my training as a leader and as a politician, because the Al-Kafar movement went from something like a group therapy, and it turned into a movement. And so in the movement, I had to be the leader, which is different from what I started out to be. 300 and something people. I'm sitting on the Majlis Ashura of Philadelphia, and it was a whole lot of other responsibility. And so after 5 years, I said, it's time for me to retire, because I had issues with my family. My wife was complaining, you're not home enough. You're always here. You everybody else's father. You're on the phone all the time. You have meetings all the time. There's so much responsibility. And, I'm like this and I have done work in many different Islamic organizations in my life. Alhamdulillah. And I pray that Allah accept from me. And I would never stay longer than 5 years. I would never hold a position longer than 5 years. I think that after 5 years, hopefully I have accomplished what I set out to do. And it's time for somebody to come behind me with some new ideas, some fresh ideas, and perhaps take it to the next level. I felt like I took it as far as I could take it. And it's time for somebody else to step up. And like I said today, my thing is, if anybody ever asks me to come and talk about it, or can you help us do it, or something like that, sure. But I don't want to be the Amir or none of that. I'm the Amir of my family, and that's it, you know. But I can sit and come, and we can, you know, if you have questions, or if you know you need my help, you need my advice, alhamdulillah, I'll do that. But what happened to Al Kafar in Philadelphia, I want to share that with you. Alhamdulillah, at the height of what we were doing, we used to have meetings in the masjid, and then we used to have executive meetings because we turned into an organization. And the focus of the organization, we had incorporated the name, and we did a bunch of stuff to make us as a legal entity. And we were the executive board of Al Kafar. We used to meet in a boardroom. Some Muslims who had a business and they had a big boardroom, because we sat on the Majlis Shore, they let us use their office and they let us use their boardroom, you know. And I remember sitting in there one day at the head of the table, and one of the brothers said, "Dad, we was all drug users. And look at us now sitting here, making rules and regulations, making laws." And I found that to be funny, but I said to myself, there's a serious job, a serious task for us now at this level. We still have brothers coming to this mosque and that mosque, and we have brothers that's working on those 8 points. And we still have brothers going out and inviting people, the Muslims, to come and be a part of it. There's a sisters group. We were giving different types of events to raise money. Somebody's sick or somebody can't get into a rehab, we'll put the money up. We were doing many, many good things, and I pray that Allah accept. So during that period, alhamdulillah, there's people in Philadelphia who were connected to our great brother, Sheikh Muhammad Ali, rahimahullah. And they were very close to him, and they in fact ran the Muhammad Ali Foundation that was incorporated here in Philadelphia. So they gave us a property. They gave us a house in North Philadelphia, and our task was to raise the funds and to, you know, here, we giving you this house, we don't want anything. And now it's your job to continue. At that point, it was time for me to go, and I resigned. Maybe like just after that, or just before they gave us, right before they gave us the deed and all the, you know, information. That was when I resigned. And while I still came to meetings, I didn't go to the executive meetings anymore. I didn't do any of the executive stuff no more because I resigned my position as the executive. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but sometimes that's how life is, you know. The Al Kaffarah, how can I put this? The mission of Al Kaffarah, in terms of helping Muslims, in terms of showing brothers that the Quran and the Sunnah are real and they're living, breathing books that you can apply to your life and you can make your life better. That part still goes on to this day. That part still lives to this day. And you asking me to give you this interview is just a testament to that. And that's why I agreed. I said, oh, sure. It's just a testament to that. But the people who followed me, it was a struggle for them to take care of that next task. And perhaps, inshallah, Allah will raise somebody who can take that and take it to the next level. But again, there's people in this city, there's imams in this city that will support that in a heartbeat. And like I said, right today, we had people that's talking about it, that will probably, get it done. But it was always my belief, and the two other brothers that started this program with me, that Kafar needs to have a clinic. It needs to have somewhere where Muslims can go and other people, like I said, I have a friend. They started a recovery house in Florida, in West Palm Beach, Florida. There's a lot of recovery houses and stuff like that in Florida because it's a nice place to go. Summer all year round. It's a nice place to have somebody come and take their mind off of wherever they used to be and blah, 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 right? It's very nice for that. But it was always my hope that we could accomplish that, to have a recovery house, to have a small clinic, to take people in. But what we did in place of that was we had relationships with recovery houses in Philadelphia. We had relationships with recovery houses in Williamsport, PA, where we sent people, so we were able to do that, but we just wasn't able to have our own. And, but I have no regrets at all. And, the history of Kaffarah still lives on. The work that Kaffarah did in this city will always be known, inshallah. And, in the other places where they are, it's a living, breathing group. And may Allah bless Kaffarah to continue and to continue helping Muslims. And anybody that's ever been a part of Kaffarah, who reached out to Kaffarah, they will tell you how it has made them better Muslims and better people.
Alhamdulillah.
And that's a capsulized version.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah reward you for all of the good deeds that you've done to help the community and yourself. And, many of us know, right? We often know that we plant the seeds of trees that we may not see grow to their full fruition.
That's right. That's right.
But you sure took this tree pretty far, right? You gave it lots of love.
I gave it my best. And
so inshallah, may Allah bless it to go to the next level for somebody to, this is, a pandemic of its own across the country. And, so this is really valuable information, and I can't thank you enough and tell you how grateful I am that you were willing to open yourself up and give of your time. I took a lot of your time, but to give of your
my wife is telling me, she's over there talking about
it. to share this information.
Oh, that's right.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So inshallah, we will conclude here. But I do thank you so much.
Alhamdulillah.
Really.
Well, like I said, you want to follow up on anything, or if people have, this is something that, like I said, this is a capsulized version, and there may be specifics. And if there are, you just let me know. And I would very much like to, if I could get a copy of this, because I want to be able to show this to the people here that find themselves wanting to work on putting this back together in it'll be a different form. It won't be the same form, but to continue to work.
Right.
So it'd be great.
But Jazakallahu khairan. Thank you so much for all of your time. And please give my best to your beautiful wife. Tell her thank you for giving us the time as well. So thank you.
Okay, sister. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This brings us to another conclusion of another Muslims and Mental Health episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.